Welcome to Community and Economic Development's team here at Central State University Extension. This is commonly known as CED. This is our CED Office live show, and this is what we do weekly: is that we just reach out to the community to share good information, um, to do business connections, disconnect individuals to resources, and just talk about all things CED. And before we get started, I always like to define what community and economic development is, which we commonly refer to as CED. And it's three words, but these are three, it touches, is huge, right? It's like diversity, it touches on everything. So, community and economic development is an industry or a profession that looks at how we live, how we work, how we play, how we thrive, and how we navigate through all of those spaces. So on one end of the CED spectrum is the thing that you hear a lot of is economic development. That's dealing with infrastructure such as housing, um, building of public spaces, riverfront areas, parks, bike paths, highways, right? When you see city ramas and homoramas and all those kind of things, that's all dealing with infrastructure. On the other end of the spectrum is the people development. So that's professional development, personal development, helping people to move towards self sufficiency, breaking down barriers to access to quality of life type of programming and issues and advocacy for people. And then a connector in between are organizations and businesses that connect both ends of those spectrums, right? And here today, thank you for joining us, Dr. Frank. And here today we
Good
have Miss
afternoon.
Lauren Merton, who will be focusing our discussion today on strategies to access philanthropists to support your organization. And through her organization, they do a lot of innovative approaches, but effective approaches. And we will be taking a deep dive in that today. So, Lauren, I know that you have a presentation, but before we get to your presentation, I would like to give just a general overview and background of yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren Merton, and I am the Executive Director of Social Venture Partners Cincinnati. And I've been in that role for about 7.5 years, which is kind of crazy. It's flown by. Before that, I worked in large professional services organizations, EMY, PwC, in marketing, business development type of roles, but always was on boards of things here in Cincinnati, or always had an eye towards moving into the nonprofit space at some point in my career. And so when the role at SVP became available, it seemed like a really natural, good fit for me. So that's me. And I also work with Amber on the Human Services Advisory Committee through the mayor's office here in Cincinnati, which helps direct um, the human services funds from the city to different nonprofits. So that's how we met.
Yes. And so now we're going to segue over to your organization that you run, the Social Venture Partners Cincinnati, and just kind of give us an overview. And I know you had a PowerPoint that you would like to share, so feel free to start
Yeah.
sharing.
So this is all, hopefully I can make this work in Teams. Not that way. This is a presentation that I tend to give. Let me see, screen, window. Um, I give it monthly when we are trying to, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me see. Hold on. When we're recruiting new partners to join us. So it is quick. It's about, let's see, it's about uh, one moment. I'm going to make it work. Determined. It is about 15 minutes long, but kind of covers everything that we do in pretty quick succession. So, Social Venture Partners Cincinnati. We are Greater Cincinnati's home for engaged philanthropists. And what that means is this is a group for people and companies who really want to do more with their giving, their philanthropy, than just writing a check. So, They want to contribute their business expertise, their time, to really invest in local nonprofits. We're part of an international organization that was started in Seattle about 26, 27 years ago. That's expanded to about 3,500 partners across the globe and 40 plus affiliates, mostly in the US, but some in places like India and Europe. We are here in Cincinnati, the only local funder that really goes beyond giving. So pairing grant making with hands-on, in-depth business expertise, coaching, training, and guidance to nonprofits. Historically, what we've done, we have our investee program, which is basically where we will adopt a nonprofit for a period of 3 years. We give them $20,000 a year in unrestricted grant money, so a total grant of $60,000. But more importantly, our partners go into the different organizations and bring their business expertise. So it could be, HR, it could be marketing, it could be finance, whatever that specific organization needs, we will go in and help with within our partnership. I think a great example of how we do this with Family Nurturing Center, they were investee several years ago in that long-term 3-year program. And when we started working with them, they are the organization that does all of the supervised visitation for foster children in Hamilton County. So when we started working with them, they had this giant binder, sadly giant because of so many kids, but each child in the foster care system had a sheet that had their name, contact information for them, for their biological parents, for their foster parents. So, phone numbers, addresses, all that sort of thing. When any one of those things would change, they would put a post-it note. So think about the number of times, the phone number changes or a foster parent changes. So this already giant binder is exploding with post-it notes. These are great people, but they're focused on the kids. They don't have the money to buy the iPads, the expertise to say, oh, here's the database system we're going to use, and here's how we're going to set it up, and let's get it figured out. They're focused on the kids as we want them to be. And so our partners who had IT backgrounds were able to come in and kind of do just that. Like, here's the database system. So now when kids come in and they're visiting and something changes, a phone number, an address, whatever that looks like, they just put it into the iPad and it's sort of into this database system. Other things, here are the groups that we've worked with over the years. We just finished up our 3-year relationship with Women Helping Women, helping them launch their Work Strong program into the community, into the corporate community here, which is basically a program to support HR departments when they have an employee who's been sexually assaulted. So it could be something that happened at work. It could be something that happened outside of work. But they just need additional time off. They need help with therapy or whatever the case may be. So we help them put together their business development materials, help them network to figure out how to get into the different HR departments across town. We're currently working with Refugee Connect on their Health Navigator program, which is a great program which helps refugees when they come to town navigate our healthcare system. As difficult as it is for us to navigate our healthcare system, imagine if you can't read the push down and open, the top of your prescription, or don't know what the dosage says because you don't read English. So we're helping them with that. So whatever the organization needs from sort of that, background business expertise, we're able to come in and help with our partners. So the investment tends to be, they get the $20,000 a year, and a lot of them will tell us later on, like, we originally applied, it was really for the money, but once you guys got in here and really helped us, it's the value of what we received is so much more. So the second thing that we did historically was our fast pitch program. And I like to say that we were the original nonprofit pitch competition here in Cincinnati, because we were. Now there are lots of them, but we did 7 years of it, borrowing a technique from the venture capital firms, kind of giving that 3-minute elevator pitch, which is really not a skill taught in many nonprofits. So our partners developed a training curriculum. We'd have, organizations would apply. We'd narrow it down into paper to about 25 who'd come in and get training on how to do that pitch. How do you highlight those things in order to ask people for money? So they'd present to our partners. Our partners would select 10 to 12 to move forward, who would get additional training in this 3 minute, pitch to, and then they'd be able to come in and present to 500, 700 people down at the convention center, for cash prizes, for consulting awards, all kinds of different things they could win. Um, and really interesting stories have come out of that too. We had one organization at a time that was pitching for a dental chair, and they didn't win one of the big cash prizes, but somebody in the big audience said, hey, how much is the dental chair? And it was for a dental program for homeless people. So that was super fun. We did 7 years of it. Then COVID came, and we were kind of like, okay, we've been doing great work for 14, 15 years at this point in Cincinnati. But what we were hearing at the time that, up to 40% of nonprofits, this could be an extinction event for them. Not that the need went away, but the nonprofits couldn't sustain themselves. So we said, how do we take what we do so well, that combination of grant making with the business expertise, and be able to provide more of it to more organizations here in Cincinnati? So what we came up with was Project Accelerate. And Project Accelerate is really our enhanced community impact and investment program. It takes a lot of what we did really well with Fast Pitch, combines it with what we do super well with our long-term investee program, puts them together, but also adds some other pieces to it. We look for socially innovative ideas. So these are things, it could be that the idea is the organization for a smaller organization, or it could be, an idea that a larger organization has kind of sitting on the shelf that they just don't have the staff or the expertise to kind of get it launched. But we're really looking for the things that could really have huge impact, but kind of aren't being done all the way yet. It's a 3-phase program. So they start with the explore phase. They apply on paper. We select from the paper applications 10 to 12 nonprofits. Each one of them gets $1,000 in unrestricted grant money, and it lasts about 8 to 10 weeks. And what we do in that phase is that our partner coaches will work with the organization first to, evaluate the feasibility of the idea. They also get some of that fast pitch kind of presentation training. At the end of phase 1, they come and they present to our partners, who then select 4 to 6 to move into phase 2. Phase 2 is a much deeper dive. So they get $2,500 for, in addition to the original 1,000, unrestricted grant money. And it's a very customized approach. So we're in the middle of phase 2 for our second cohort right now. And we've done there are 5 organizations. We've done 5 group presentations on marketing, business development, sales, HR systems, and we did fundraising as well. And then, we did those group sessions, but then they also have partner coaches who are working with them on other very specific things. So, one of them was looking at developing an app. Another one was looking at, an expansion to build a permanent facility, bigger facility, that sort of thing. So whatever that, we surveyed them at the end of phase 1, came up with kind of, here were the things that they had in common, that they wanted to learn about. So we, picked out those and did group presentations within our partners who had that expertise. And then we expanded to, if there are other things that we can help them with during this phase 2. At the end of April, they'll come and present to our partners again, who will then select one of those 5 nonprofits to move into that longer term investee relationship, where there's $20,000 a year, and they also have the partners coming in to help them on any number of business background, back office types of things. The other stuff that we do here in Cincinnati is, I think that we really work to develop effective community leaders. So we have, education through SVP International that folks can participate in. We have, different education events that we put on for our own partners. If we say, hey, our partners, to be better, do our work better, need to know about this particular area of what's happening in the nonprofit community or what's happening in our community in general, we'll put on something like that. We've had book clubs, equity book clubs. We've had other types of events, poverty simulations, that sort of thing. But to really kind of help our partners become better community citizens. We work with lots of other organizations in town. Some of them, like Fifth Third Bank and Scripps, will sponsor people, pay for their employees to be partners with us. Other ones we work on in just a variety of ways. As an example, Give One for Cincy was through the mayor's office several years ago when volunteerism rates in Cincinnati were declining drastically. And so we were able to come in. The mayor had this campaign, Give One for Cincy, that was a volunteerism campaign. And so we're able to kind of help them, put it together, develop the site that was tracking and that sort of thing. So we kind of are nimble enough that we can, be involved in whatever we need to do to help Cincinnati. So far, our impact, we've given away, more than $2.5 million, but I think probably the most beneficial part of this whole slide is that more than 50,000 hours of consulting free to local nonprofits. We did 7 years of fast pitch, and more than 150 nonprofits have gone through and were trained in that storytelling. So we kind of are starting to get some really nice impact results. The people who join us as partners, it is a huge range of people. We've had some who are college kids, but right now we're probably about 25 to 60 plus. I don't put an upper end on that. But they range in life experience. We've got some who are starting out their careers and others who have had the really big jobs, retired, or some of them call it rewired, and are consulting or doing coaching or that sort of thing. Some are working full time. We have about 50-50 men and women, and about 20, a little more than 20% are young professionals, so they're under 40. But the one thing that they all have in common is that they're looking for a way to kind of go beyond giving and have their philanthropy, amplify their monetary giving, which is nice because it makes my job really nice because it tends to be a really nice group of people. Oops, let me see. So the ways that people join us, for individuals here in Cincinnati, it's $3,000 per year. Some folks join, a husband and wife or with an adult child, and that's $6,000 a year. For young professionals under 40, it's $1,500 a year if they're sponsored by their companies. But if they join individually, they can have like a scale that goes up from 500 the first year, 1,000 second, and 1,500 until they reach 40. Some people join, as individuals and pay for it themselves. Other people will join and be sponsored through the foundation or the company that they work for. So it's kind of, there's that piece of it too. So there's really that, investing your money as well as investing your business expertise. So that is it. That is, that's my email if you guys want that. But that is SVP in a nutshell. So I will stop talking and because you just don't need to hear me talk that much. But I hope
We
that was
want you to talk that much.
Okay. Okay. Well, I like to kind of, get that whole piece out of the way because I know along the way there can be questions, and I know that it is not a typical philanthropic organization. So it, hopefully that was helpful in providing an understanding.
Lauren, I did have a question. On your one slide, there were a range. You had looked like several law firms and legal related organizations, including Pro Bono Ohio and some others. What is their role? I mean, that's that legal component of serving the community and those entities and organizations is a very important component. So how does that work with what you're doing?
So I am very good friends with the lady who runs Pro Bono Partners, Partnership of Ohio. She and I worked together when she was a lawyer and I worked at Thompson Hine in their marketing department years ago. With Frost and with Taft, the law firms, they are actually sponsoring some of their lawyers to be partners with us. So we're happy to refer people to pro bono, but we have, some lawyers who are partners with us too. So, I know Frost and Taft, I'm sure that they both participate in pro bono. Pro bono legal partnership is a very similar model to us. The one main difference is that they are fully funded by corporations and law firms. That's where they get their funding. We have many individual partners as well as corporations that will pay for the individual to be with us. So it's a little bit of a different funding models for ourselves, but it's a similar, they're really focused obviously on the legal thing, but we're doing the other stuff, but we still can dip our toes, but we will
Yeah.
always pass them to pro
Okay.
bono.
Interesting.
We're like, oh, you
Interesting.
need to talk to the lawyers. But I mean, we do have like probably 4 or 5 lawyers who are partners with us.
Okay. Excellent. That's good to hear.
Not a clear answer, but that's the real answer.
So, in the 7 years that you've been at SVP Cincinnati, um, how has the nonprofit world in Cincinnati, how have they reacted to you? And um, I know you mentioned earlier how, they were just looking at it as just this $20,000. $20,000 can pay a staff person, you know,
Hmm.
get you just about there, right?
And it's
So that is
unrestricted
major,
too.
especially for those small and mid-sized organizations. Um, but how have they been receptive to the things that you're saying? Because a lot of times when you come in there and you're doing the coaching, you are giving them new information, they get exposed, and and then it's like, oh, like
Yeah.
I didn't know I was getting all of this,
Careful
right?
what you wish
So
for.
how have you navigated those waters once you kind of get in there?
Well, I think, probably, well, number one, I think that when we were prior to my time with SVP, and I think still a little bit, it's a little confusing because it is a different model. And one of the things that we really look for when we're looking at nonprofits is like, do they understand it or are they really just trying to get the money? Because, our partners, they are enthusiastic and they can overwhelm. I will say that. But having a really understanding of like, you're going to get the money, but you're also going to get people coming in who want to help you. Um, and so we have to sort of balance because sometimes they get a little excited. But I think the nonprofits have been very, very receptive. I mean, the ones that we have going through Project Accelerate right now, who are the 5, it's, hopefully I remember them all, Avondale Development Corporation for their
Okay,
trauma
so that's Russell
informed
Harrison. Okay.
days. um, Cincinnati Reuse and Recycling Hub, they
Okay.
want to work on their facility. Cornerstone Renter Equity, to build their equity club, which is a great organization. Last Mile Food Rescue, and to start with their mobile unit, and then Our Tribe, which is an organization and really new organization, to put together an autism doula program for Black children because Black children apparently are diagnosed 2 to 5 years later, because which early interventions can be challenging then.
Hmm.
So yeah, so those are the 5, which could not be any different. I mean, we're a little different too because we are, so many organizations are very focused on one specific cause. It's housing, it's poverty, it's infant mortality, whatever that looks like. We are really looking for those ideas, those seed ideas that we can help to flourish. So I think, I think by the time I got here, and even still, I'm always educating people on how our model really is quite different. Um, but I think the nonprofits are starting to get it, and especially, gosh, after COVID, and everyone has staff challenges. I mean, that's not new in the nonprofit world, but it even
Hmm.
is more stress. I think they appreciate the help. I mean, while having volunteers is wonderful and great, and you can, if you have a food pantry and you need people to help you serve food, that's great. But if you have people to help you make sure that you can serve your food 3 years from now and kind of, do those things in the background of those business functions that you probably don't have the support you need. No one does in the nonprofit world, in any, IT, HR. If you have people who can come and help you and know what they're doing, I mean, a great example of it, I think, was Mortar. Mortar is an awesome organization doing wonderful, wonderful work.
Hmm.
Wanted to expand into other cities and spread that. But the guys who started, they didn't have that experience. So we were able to get a team in there from, P&G and all kinds of different places of people who had done it 100 times in their careers to come in and say, okay, well, when you're looking to expand, here's what you look at. Here's, the things you need to think about.
Hmm.
So it's kind of those types of things that are very specific to the organization, that are very, um, have a lot of impact, that, like the binder example, it was working fine. It was working fine. Probably not super 100% effective, but we want those people focused on the kids. We don't want them worrying about, oh, how do I learn how to do this database? How do I,
Hmm.
start that in my organization? So that's what I love. And I feel like too, in Cincinnati, I feel like there's a lot of patting ourselves on the back of like, oh, we're one of the most philanthropic organizations. Oh, we're ranked this for, oh, we raised so much money. We've got a huge Tocqueville Society, all this stuff. But then our poverty statistics and, others, just infant mortality, like we're so high on those too. And that doesn't make sense to me. So what it tells me is it's not money. Money's raising money. We can raise money. That's not the problem. Um, and I like to think that SVP is sort of can help fix that disconnect, because to me that doesn't make sense to me.
So you know that you all are a CED um, type of organization, right? Because you're connecting,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you're seeing where in the system you can plug and play. So it's all kind of pieces to the system. So you're
it
not
really is.
limited to one silo, right? And so that's what I think I've always been impressed with your organization. It's taken philanthropy to another level. Your partners are able to get fulfillment, not just write a check, but
Mhm.
actually be involved in how that investment goes, right? They get on the front line where a lot of times by the time someone is donating at that level, or they're just writing a check, but you're giving them an opportunity to be hands on and build relationships. And I think that's another beauty of your model is that, as you know, nonprofits always have to raise money, right? And the key to that is relationships. So organically, they're learning how to build those relationships with people who have those resources. So I think that that's a beauty of your model. And I think Dr. Frank has a question.
Thank
Dr.
you
Frank, go ahead.
for yeah, thank you for taking my question. I just have a question about your preparation to send people out before they get to the, let's say, the nonprofits.
Mhm.
Are you training them with certification or just ordinary training? How are you sure that they're ready to deliver what you want them to deliver?
That is an excellent question. Um, what we do is we don't have a certification or anything like that. When you become a partner, we figure out how, they'll meet with me, and we'll do an orientation of like, here are the ways to be involved. We have partners who help me manage SVP and do different things here. But then we also have the ones who are directly facing the nonprofits or working with the nonprofits. We tend to pair newer partners with more seasoned, I never say older, more seasoned partners um, who've done it before. But the beauty of the model really is that these people are taking, um, they're not taking something new to the nonprofit. They're taking what they know, their expertise. So it could be marketing, it could be HR policies and procedures, whatever, that they're taking what they know. We do some information like in our education of partners as a group, because there are things that are nuanced to nonprofits. There are things that are definitely different for nonprofits. And that is our biggest kind of like, okay, no, that's not going to work. When we started Project Accelerate, we had all these, models and stuff coming in that our first group that we went through, and we work with our nonprofits too, to be like, tell us exactly what is wrong and what is right. And they gave us feedback of like, it's so business, it's so corporate. Here are the things that need to change to make it more nonprofit. So we're forever learning. But the beauty is that they are going in with their core business expertise, and that's what they're coaching on. We do more of like the training on coaching, and we do have, for every new partner, we suggest that they go through our coaching training. Because again, it sort of pulls in some of that nuanced nonprofit thing, but then also, it's not super effective to go in and be like, you need to do X, Y, and Z because I say so. Ultimately, it's the nonprofit's choice whether they listen to us or not. But we want the relationships. We want to be, a very trusted partner to the staff of that organization that we're working with, because it's a long-term relationship. And even after the 3 years, we'll occasionally get calls. Our partners will go and attend their galas. Our partners will, support them. I've had people leave us as a partner to be, board chair or join the board of another organization, which I'm like, okay, it's a success story. I miss them, but it is, it's part of the model of like helping people. Some people join us and find the cause that they are passionate about. And so we want them to go and dig in there. So I hope that answered your question, Dr. Frank. I think,
Yes,
we give
thank
them coaching
yeah.
training, but really using their core business expertise.
Thank you. Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you.
You've mentioned nonprofits a lot. Do you all work with a range of other structures like social enterprises or benefit corporations? Something different than a nonprofit or 501(c)(3)?
We have not to this point done that, but it is something, because I feel like there are so many, right now you have to have a 501(c)(3) to apply for Project Accelerate. It is something that we are definitely exploring, and I would think in sort of the next 2 to 5 years would be looking at that too. Because it's a great point, because there are so many organizations starting now that impact investing and social enterprise types of things, that it's a growing area that we probably do need to be focused on.
Okay, okay.
And I think
I
there are other
think that,
SVPs who are, that's another interesting thing of the 40 plus affiliates. Every affiliate operates completely locally. So we're the only ones who have Project Accelerate. There are some of them that have fast pitches, but they have that core investee program usually. But there are some that are doing some of that social enterprise investing type of thing.
yeah. So when
It's
you
common.
and that's great to hear, because we're coming across folks who are, as we do our classes and workshops, the groups, they have different approaches, that they're trying to take. They may set up, they'll say social enterprise, so they're going to do a for-profit type entity, but it's to address a social need that they've identified. And when we have Ohio's adoption of benefit corporations recently within the last few years, which allows a for-profit entity to a corporation to actually do a social purpose as its main activity. I think it sort of opens the door for that kind of support. So.
Mhm. I think it's really interesting. I think it's definitely something that is, we're keeping an eye on. We are good friends with organizations like Flywheel. They have an accelerator program, and they have, it's social enterprise based, and it doesn't matter. It can be for profit or nonprofit. But, there's more and more of those for-profit social enterprises coming around that, it's impossible for us not to.
So with your observation that you're saying that it's not raising money or having money available is not the issue, but we still have these concerns in society, the poverty, the homelessness, all these things that persist. What are you seeing or feeling is that missing component or that missing area that needs to be addressed?
I think that's a complicated question, but okay, I'll take it. I like to think that, I look at nonprofits, and Amber, we talk to people in nonprofits every single day. We have so many nonprofits in Greater Cincinnati. I mean, there are 8,000, 9,000. You hear different numbers out there. A lot of them are doing the same thing. A lot of them are, they all are coming from the heart and passionate about what they do. There tend to be a lot of people who start a nonprofit because something personally has happened to them, that they're, become passionate about that and go in. But they're all kind of competing for dollars. They're all competing for the dollars. I like to think that with the SVP model, they're competing for the dollars, but they don't have the infrastructure to really make it work. Perhaps some of them should be merged, or there should be some maybe process to figure out like where you need to fit in. But I think, and Amber can attest to this too, like they're all so staff stressed. And after COVID,
Yes.
it's even worse. They're all, money stressed, staff stressed. None of them have the numbers of people to do what they need to do. And I like to think that SVP can help that by kind of, going back to that binder example, taking care of that. That is something that's has a big impact on that organization, ultimately on those kids, to stuff like that. I mean, I think that those are the pieces, is that they can't, they're so many are just struggling to operate in an efficient way that to keep their heads above water.
Right.
To actually do the mission,
I think as you mentioned that, it just sort of brings to mind, because I think all of us here have projects that we do outside of our day jobs also, and when you talk about,
as well, if you'd like to. I'm just going to throw that out there.
so when you talk about this sort of the back office type work and some of those components, the accounting, the some of the legal type work, things of that nature. To have that addressed, sort of across the board or made available across the board, and then you have that aspect of the mission or the purpose or the unique approach that someone wants to take, the founder, their vision. If there's some way to sort of isolate that and put that on top of the infrastructure, so that now funders, maybe someone, SVPers or what have you, could support this infrastructure and allow the person's vision, let them focus on their vision. That may be something that could be helpful, because I think that even with the things that that I do, it's about the vision. I don't see anyone else doing the vision the way that I want to do it, and I wouldn't want to entrust my vision to someone else, until I've gotten it going, and then it can sort of carry on. So maybe to the extent that something like that could be addressed in the community or industry, that might be sort of helpful, I think.
Yeah, and I think that there have been some efforts, and there are some, and Amber, jump in if you know anything, there are some shared services model that Urban League maybe had done something like that at one point. Um, so I think there's something there. I mean, to your point, like you have these people who are leading these organizations who are so passionate about what they're doing. And like that to me, being someone who came from corporate America, business development, marketing, sales, how do we sell billion-dollar deals to this company?
Right.
People in corporate America don't tend to have that amount of passion, and you want to bottle it, and you want, to really um, allow them to deliver on their mission and vision, and and not be held back by, uh, my accounting. I'm not an accountant, so we're going to make fun of the accountants. Like you just want to be, they're so passionate. You want to bottle it. You want them to do it. I mean, some of the groups that we've worked with, um, we worked with an organization called Transform Cincy, which is a smaller organization here in town that is basically kind of a clothes closet for transgender youth. Started because, the suicide rates and attempted suicide rates are insane for transgender youth. So what they can do is they bring in their old wardrobe, they work with a stylist, they donate their old wardrobe, work with a stylist for their new gender, get, a whole new wardrobe. They also provides, support services for the families and stuff. And started by a mom who had a transgender child and, saw the struggle and was like, the clothes can help here. And a very simple model, but doesn't, staffing is a huge challenge for it, but so passionate and can make such a difference. I mean, the rates of suicide with those kids is just
Right.
shocking. And, having one supportive adult in their lives. They also have like get together so the kids can come together and, hang out with other kids like themselves. So it's just that kind of passion you don't see in corporate America, but like, getting the infrastructure in place and help with the infrastructure and help with a strategic plan, help with a, accounting system it can make the difference between them making it or not.
Right. Right. Wow.
And I know Eric had a question. You've had your hand up a while, Eric. He's been patiently waiting.
On hand.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so fascinating and such important work. I'm wondering, I'm thinking I'm not in Cincinnati, or I don't serve the Cincinnati region, so I don't have you as a resource. Um, where are the other SVPs, or or do some of them work outside of a specific zone? Like, is there a place I can refer if we have a nonprofit that needs,
Sure.
or social enterprise that needs
The closest
support?
one to us here in Cincinnati is probably Cleveland. If you go onto the SVP, just socialventurepartners.org, I think is like the international, they've got the list because I certainly could not list them all off. We are, and I think in most markets we're pretty unique. I mean, it was started in Seattle 25, 26 years ago from some, tech retirees who retired super early with tons of money. And in Seattle, they've grown to about 600 partners at last check and are doing just huge work. Here in Cincinnati, we're at about 62. But we're limited. We're probably about 80% funded by our individual partner contributions. So we're not getting big grants from places at this point. So the more partners we have, the more work we can do. But yeah, so look on that website, and you can see where there are other ones. But I think in Ohio, Cleveland is the only other one. I think there might be some in Indiana.
Yeah, makes me wonder about Little Africa.
Or you could start another one. Where
Mhm.
are you located, Eric?
So I serve Northwest Ohio, so
Okay.
south of Toledo is where I'm located, but serve Toledo, Mansfield, Lima, all those communities.
Yeah. Cleveland, I'm not sure how far Cleveland goes out, so you may want to just check in with that. Or you could start an SVP Toledo. You can start one. There was a group, I mean, how it started here in Cincinnati, there was um, a group of folks who were on a board together, and one, the staff people for Interact for Health, they were on that board and had this idea of like, oh, we want to give business expertise too. Researched it a bit, came up with the SVP model, um, put the business plan together, and work with SVP to become an affiliate. So they like new affiliates.
So a new affiliate, what do you get out? What do you get from being part of the SVP network, right? I mean, I
Well,
assume
you get the
start off
branding,
with
so
something.
that's good. But they also give us some of our backbone stuff. So we get access to Salesforce. We have like an executive director group that gets together. We can, they also would put on, they haven't done one in a while, but big conferences every year, every other year, where people from all over the world would come in, partners and staff, and hear about like what the individual places are doing. So, which was really interesting from like, oh, well, SVPLA is kind of taking this model of business expertise and grant money, and they're doing it this way in their community. Is there something we could take back to Cincinnati? So that sort of thing, sort of, background knowledge, institutional knowledge, that kind of stuff. They are, SVP International is also trying, I think that they are expanding as well and getting, kind of rethinking philanthropy, and how to support the affiliates even better. So we're excited for that. They've got a new strategic plan, I think, coming too. So
Yeah, kind of tying back in, I think to the earlier conversation, and Ambrose, yes, but what's the disconnect? Now, it's or why are our significant investments in social issues not yielding the impact we might expect, right? So that's something that I find
that's a
interesting.
hard
But
one.
one of so a lens that I don't think we use enough of, I was just listening to a podcast just talking about, we don't think about place enough, about place as an engine for economic development. And so that's a field that interests me, special interest around place-based work. So in a place, you have a lot of nonprofits and as well as businesses. I mean, but if you wrap place around that, you can do some interesting things. So I'm part of my side interest is, so how do you build an accelerator for place-based? It might be a CDC, a nonprofit that's place-based. But the point is, if you change the environment, you're much more likely to by changing the environment,
You change the outcomes.
you change the outcomes. We keep trying to change the outcomes without changing the environment, and so you're just hitting against this wall. And so that's why I don't see us, whereas internationally we've really impacted the poverty issue a lot, but that's because we're changing the environment. People understand that internationally in the majority world.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think Amber, you can jump in and help me with this one, but I think there is an effort sort of trying that sort of neighborhood approach here in Cincinnati,
Yes.
centered around Avondale, where I think, some of the bigger organizations and some of the bigger corporate folks are sort of like, okay, well, let's try exactly that. Like, just go with the neighborhood, spend lots and lots of time and money there and see. So I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
Yeah, so that is really kind of like the old neighborhood business district kind of model where and Russell Harrison at the Avondale Development Corp is the one to train me on it, right? So he's been in that space doing that work, and he's really applying that frame of mind, that thinking to the existing organization that he's worked in. And like you, that's really his social venture partner type of work at that organization, because he's retired. And then, he got bored. He don't know how to sit still. So he redirected. And now he's directing the Avondale Development Corp. So he's applying that very same thing. Is we're center in this community, one of the largest Cincinnati communities. All the hospitals, all the universities touch on that community, have physical presence in that community as well. And he's leveraging that to your point, Eric, to make that systematic change, so that when he leaves, that system is still working. So he's looking at it from a systematic approach, meaning let's look at the infrastructure. Where is the impact occurring? Not just the feel good or I help one person, but I want to be able to help 10 in a sustainable way. So when you have that mindset, that's when you see improvements. And Lauren, to your point, even our work volunteering on the mayor's Human Services Advisory Committee, we look at that in a selection process, right? We look at, okay, what are they doing? We don't care if they are just one neighborhood, 10 neighborhoods. We still look at how they're functioning. Are they having impact in the area, and do they have the capacity for whatever they're saying they're doing? And the ones that are able to do that or identify, hey, this is an area we need help in, then those are the ones that are successful, and the communities benefit for the long term from that.
Well,
So,
and it's interesting too, Amber, because I know going back to our work on HSAC, Human Services Advisory Committee, one of the newer awards that they're doing this year is the Impact Award.
Yeah, the innovation grant. Yep.
The innovation grant
Mhm.
focused on affordable housing. And kind of this was a different sort of twist to it, like when they were describing it to our committee and talking about how they really would like a group of organizations to come together and kind of, put a proposal, like actually work together, talk together, put a proposal together. I reached out to a few folks. I didn't get much traction because I was like, okay, put your proposal together, but put SVP in there to come and help you manage it, even just
Right.
the project management of it. No one, I didn't get much traction, but we'll see. But kind of that's the kind of thing that I think could really make a difference everywhere. If you get organizations that are, they just tend to be kind of siloed. They tend to be laser focused on what they're doing, which is great, and the work they're doing is great, but like, who do you know, what other organizations are working in this sphere or in that neighborhood or on that cause that should be coming together to work together? And what other resources do you need, like an SVP, to help you manage this or whatever the case may be? I think that's a lot of the thinking that I don't see on a day-to-day basis.
No, it's more like they're competing for the same crumbs.
Well, they are competing,
Right.
technically they
And
are
instead of
competing
looking
for the
at
same
it like
grant money.
we can have a whole slice instead of crumbs if we kind of work together. And it's a partnership, which means everybody's bringing something to the table, right? It's not one-sided, but that's kind of the culture here. And I know it's not just unique to Cincinnati,
Well, and I
but
think too, like if you look at the grant applications that tend to be, and which is why we don't tend to do very well in sort of an online grant application, because they'll say, okay, what causes are you focused on? And we're kind of like, well, all of them, if they've got the
right.
idea. So you put the other or you put all of them, and then they're like, yes, no, thank you. But so,
Mhm.
technically, if you're going to this organization who's focused on food insecurity and you're in an organization working in food insecurity, you are competing. You're competing for the money to keep yourself sustainable.
Mhm.
So it is, that's tough. That's a tough, um,
Mhm.
it's a tough thing to crack.
Yes. So for you all that don't know, what the city did is pulled some of the human services fund money, the city of Cincinnati, and said, we have this national issue that really is impacting us locally. Let's invest to solicit ideas on how to address it outside of, because what we've been doing isn't working, right? So this is a 3-year opportunity for organizations, and this due probably in a couple weeks, 2 or 3
Soon,
weeks.
yeah.
And
I haven't heard anything.
it's like a 3-year grant for over $1 million to basically take something from concept to application, right? So the beauty of that, they don't have to have the solution, but they have to show what their kind of thought process are to
Idea,
get to a
yeah.
solution, right? So I'm hoping that we have a lot that we'll be able to grade.
It's going to be
And
really
review.
interesting. It'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see
what
what in
people
the
come up
world
with.
come up with.
And that's another hindrance when it's public dollars, because if you tell too much of your information, then people will do a Freedom of Information Act request, and now your stuff isn't innovative. Everybody's saying they took what you came up with. So the beauty of that innovation grant opportunity is they don't have to tell their best kept secret. They just have to show that they have the wherewithal to get to that best kept secret and make it public. So that's a different approach that is being taken with that opportunity. Dr. Frank, you had another question?
Just thank you. Just comments, maybe not much of
Okay.
question.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for this topic, and it's pretty interesting, and I know you're open to continuous improvement. So if for any reason that I have some suggestion to make, then I will pass it through Ms. Amber, and that might be helpful because it looks like everything should be a continuum. Now,
Yes.
in addition to that, I will also say that this is very, very interesting, and I know some people that might be in need of this kind of help. So thank you again for being able to make this presentation. I think it's a pretty good, informative one. That's my comments.
Thank you for having me. And I will send you the presentation, Amber, that has
Okay.
my email address in it. Everybody, feel free to email me at any time. Our grant application usually will go out midsummer. So, look at our social media. You guys can connect with me on LinkedIn or whatever, or just email me if you have ideas or other ways, to connect. I'm happy to do that.
Right. And do we have any other closeout comments from the CED team and our FCS team as well?
I just wanted to thank you for sharing with us today. It's been a very, very helpful and insightful. So and I can see the value to the community of your organization. So thank you.
Thank you. We're trying. We are trying.
Yeah, no doubt. I just really appreciate willingness to come on. We know, so if we'll know someone to refer people to if they
Yeah,
think they
for
fit that
sure.
profile. Great model, and I've definitely learned a lot, and I might be in touch. Just keep learning.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys having me. And, again, whatever, if you have ideas or anything that comes up, I'm always open to chat. And my email you guys will have in the presentation, and we'll just go from there.
Well, thank you for joining us, and this will conclude our segment today on strategies to access philanthropists to support your organization. Hope nonprofits have, or people who even want to get into nonprofit work, make sure that you get on their website so that you can get started out right. And Lauren, just thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to meet with us today.